We were studying the chapter, the last lesson, and today we'll be doing the last part of this lesson. Just a quick recap, we have already studied how the little boy Franz realizes a bit late that he has wasted his time and not studied the French language, and now he will not be able to study it in the future because the Germans have taken up the land of Alsace-Lorraine, and now they would be studying German. So he's pretty sad about it, and he realizes his mistake, and so does the other villagers also realize their mistake, that they have not taken the language seriously, or they have taken their freedom in a very easy manner. So now that somebody else or another nation will be ruling over them, now they realize the importance of liberty, of freedom, of patriotism, and of the love or respect that they could have had for their language, but they have wasted a golden opportunity of studying it, and now it is too late. So let us study further, read further, and see what happens next. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw Monsignor Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little schoolroom. Fancy, for 40 years he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. Just like that. Only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hop vine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it, all poor man. To hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country the next day. So it's a very sad day for Monsignor Hamel, because it's not only the last day in the school for him, it is the last day in the country for him. And perhaps he is taking in everything, क्योंकि उसका आखिरी दिन है उस दिन स्कूल में, उस शहर में. तो वो वहाँ बैठे बैठे जब फ्रांस अपना काम कर रहा है लिखने का, तो वो बार बार ऊपर देखता है, and he realizes how Monsignor Hamel is just looking around everywhere, and he's just trying to take in जितनी memories वो ले सकता है वहाँ से, जितना वो उसके दिल में पता नहीं क्या क्या चल रहा होगा. Maybe the journey of all those 40 years must have been in his mind, and he must be thinking about it. And it's a sad day for him. And he also thinks that Franz can hear his sister, Monsignor Hamel's sister, packing up the things. तो ट्रंक्स के उठाने रखने की या सामान रखने की आवाज़ आ रही है. And for 40 years he has lived just practically in the school, क्योंकि स्कूल के पास ही उनका गार्डन है, स्कूल के पास ही उनका कमरा है जहाँ वो रहते थे, उनका घर. And each and everything, it is very difficult to uproot somebody in old age. And it is very difficult for Monsignor Hamel to accept the fact that now the Germans have taken over Alsace-Lorraine, and now he has to leave this country where he was born, he was brought up, he had stayed there for so many years, and he had given the best years of his life to serve the students of the country. And unfortunately he will not be able to pursue this, he will not be able to continue this, and he's feeling very sad about it. So he's just gazing into oblivion, जैसे कि किसी सिर्फ वो देख रहे हैं चीज़ों को और शायद मन ही मन में सोच रहे होंगे कि आज के बाद मैं ये सब चीज़ें नहीं देख पाऊँगा या ऐसे नहीं पढ़ा पाऊँगा, या ही इज़ फीलिंग वेरी नॉस्टैल्जिक अबाउट इट. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, bi, bi, bo, boo. Down there at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and, holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. So he says that in those emotions, overwhelming emotions. It was extremely sad to see Monsignor Hamel like that, and at the same time, he was. Lot of emotions were coming. बहुत जज्बाती हो रहे थे, रोने का मन कर रहा था, हंसने का मन कर रहा था, बहुत सारे emotions दिमाग में चल रहे हैं. And at the same time, पर उनका जो जज्बा था पढ़ाने का, that stayed there. And after every, like, whatever the timetable was for the day, he was following that, and he was teaching one lesson after the other, and taking the period. So after the French language period was over, it was time to study history. एंड हिस्ट्री के बाद उनको रेसिटेशन करना था, और वो फिर से वो फ्रेंच के सिलेबल्स पढ़ा रहे होते हैं. एंड इवन द ओल्ड विलेजर्स हु आर सिटिंग एट द बैक ऑफ द क्लास, दे ऑल्सो स्टार्ट reciting it. And Franz, the little boy, he says that it was so funny to hear the old people recite the syllables, जो बा बी बो बोल रहे हैं, तो जितने बड़े बुजुर्ग लोग हैं वो जब उसको रिपीट कर रहे हैं तो बहुत फनी लग रहा है सुनने में. And they all wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Laugh because it was sounding so funny, and cry because it was the last class. And Franz says that he would never be able to forget that last class because it was so full of overwhelming emotions. All at once, the church clock struck 12. Then the Angelus. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians, returning from drill, sounded under our windows. Monsignor Hamel stood up, very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. My friends, said he, I, but something choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Viva la France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word, he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed. You may go. Viva la France. Right? So it is a very, very touching moment, because the church bell strikes 12, and it is in the Catholic tradition, it is a time to pray, and it's afternoon 12 o'clock, and one side the bell is ringing, the other side the prayers are going on, the other side the Prussians, they are carrying their drills, so they are blowing their trumpets as a sign of victory, that now France is no more, France is under Germany, so they are celebrating their victory. And Monsignor Hamel, with all the patriotism in his heart, with all the love for his country, he's standing there near the window seeing all this. He wants to say something, but he chokes. He's very emotional. He's full of emotions, and he's not able to speak because he wants to cry. But with all, he controls himself. He controls his emotions, and with all his might, वो जाके बोर्ड पे बड़ा बड़ा लिखते हैं, "Viva la France" means we love France, and he's not able to say anything else. Um, the that is the thing that he does, and what he wants to say. He wanted to say that whether the Germans take over France or any other nation takes over France, he will always love his country. He will always have those feelings for his country, and he's not able to speak those emotions out. So he goes and writes it on the um, blackboard, and he's so overwhelmed with emotions that he just makes a sign to the class that the class is dismissed and that now they can go home. And he and along with him, the villagers, the children, they all just, at the end of the story, they all just say, "Viva la France, we love France," or "France may live forever." Unfortunately, it would not be there from the next day, but the feeling that they have inside them, the love for their country, the loyalty for their country, the patriotism that they have for their country, that is said in that one sentence, "Viva la France." Okay, so the chapter is over here. I'm sorry, you might be hearing some other sounds as well today in this video, because some kirtan is going on in the neighborhood. I'm sorry for that, but I hope that you have understood this lecture and this story. Please read this story once you have finished seeing all the 4 parts of this lesson. Okay, and I'll be sending you the notes later on. Till then, take care of yourselves and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.